Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining, everyone. Happy to be here and happy to drive this session for you. We've got really good content around AWS data protection with Veeam. So we've got a pretty nice solution and going to show you how it works and how it looks like. But then a couple of introductory steps. My name is Andrew, or AZ. I'm technologist for product strategy team here at Veeam, and I'm joined today by my colleague and friend Eric Ellenberg, who is inside system engineer for public cloud team. A few welcome words from you, Eric.
Hey, AZ. Yeah, great to be here. I got some good content for you guys today. Looking forward to sharing it.
All right, cool stuff. Yeah, so it is a live session. We're both here to basically to provide you with any kind of information you might need for your AWS related data protection practices. So feel free to use the chat or Q&A panel in order to ask us anything that you want. And without any further ado, I would like to start from talking about the different things that can happen in the cloud. And one of them would be data loss. I mean, Eric, I'm not sure if you followed the incident that happened yesterday, but a couple of, or at least one of the availability zones and a couple of data centers, they were not responsible or responsive through the evening, I believe. So yeah, so data loss kind of as a result of this outage can happen in the cloud. And yeah, obviously it's better to be safe than sorry, and it's better to prepare for it. But whenever we ask our customers and people who work with the cloud, so what's going on and what would be the reason why you experience the data loss? So almost 40% of them tell us about the user errors or some of different sorts of deletions. And if you think about that, we're all human, we make mistakes, so that's totally understandable. Besides of them, some people call the security threats, anything related to ransomware attacks or potential misconfigurations of their organizations and different applications that they use. So again, pretty plausible. You can see that that can happen to you and your organization too. And then the third reason related to retention policy gaps, something goes about compliance, different retention policies that they use. For example, some of the medical records that they didn't know that they should have kept for longer periods of time than they were actually kept. So it's all relates to the fact that the data loss can happen. And if you go to the cloud provider, you think, oh, they would actually help me out. And they would have a backup for me. And in case of many of the cloud providers, that would be the case. That's right. However, if you read the shared responsibility model or any of the user level agreements with them, it would be obvious that you still need a backup, because there is this fine line between what they're responsible for and what you as a customer are responsible for. And the thing is that they would deal with their data centers, they would change the failed hardware, they would work on whenever there is no power with data centers and stuff like that. However, you as the customer of their cloud, you're going there and then you bring some data, you organize the platforms, you build up applications, and then you are responsible for that type of information, for the services, for the identity management and stuff like that. But most of all, it's the data, the customer data. So it will be written anywhere or everywhere inside of the end user level agreement. So it's, they are not going to be responsible for that. And whenever stuff happens, you're going to be responsible for it. So what does it mean? You still need a backup. what kind of backup can you use? You can use the native backup, that's fine, or you can use some third-party tool, for example, Veeam. And I know we are not supposed to talk a lot about differences between the native solutions and Veeam solutions, but our approach is somewhat different because we try to provide the software which you can run. Well, basically, you'll still be running it in the cloud. However, you can extract the data by using this software, and you could put it on-prem. And if we're talking about the cloud-native protection with Veeam, it consists of multiple layers. And for example, the first layer would be for us to, for you to deploy this solution, Veeam Backup for public cloud, AWS, Azure, or GCP, and then to take a native snapshot of the original workload that you are trying to protect, whether it is EC2 instance or like RDS database or EFS share. And then the second layer of protection would be to extract the data and put it within the same cloud to the object storage. In case of Amazon, it would be AWS S3, which would grant you a better better protection, better durability, and better cost, especially if we're talking about the long-term retention. However, the most important here is the third layer of protection and the ability to extract the data, to get it out the cloud, and whenever you need to recover it to on-premises, or to just bring it to on-premises, or to recover it to any other cloud, to migrate it to any other cloud, that's all possible. And so the vendor locked-in is avoided, which is really good. Okay, so this is how cloud native protection looks like, and let's talk about our solution that I have already mentioned here, Veeam Backup for AWS. I'm just going to give you a couple of bullet points about the solution itself and how it looks like, and then I will hand it to Eric, who is going to show the live demo of the solution itself. Okay, so whenever we talk about it, we have to specify a couple of very important capabilities. And one of them would be that this solution is AWS native. It was developed specifically for AWS with agentless approach to use the native snapshots for lowest RPOs. And then what can it do? It can provide you with the ability to create backup policies. So it's policy-based approach, optimate anything that you want, create as many snapshots or as many backups as you want, perform a data lifecycle management the way you want. If you want, the long-term retention, short-term retention, the migration of data, it's all possible with this solution. The third point related to application consistency, because we obviously, there would be cases when you run some of the, biggest servers in AWS and you use those, especially in conjunction with the databases. So there should be an option to grant the application consistency and zero data loss, backup and recovery whenever you perform the backup or recovery, like you're migrating data and trying to recover it. So there should be a way to ensure that all of the data, let's name the SQL server, for example, that all of the data from transactional log is going to be recovered back to the original SQL server. The fourth point related to full restore, or actually multiple recovery options, because we will list here full restore, the file level restore, instant recovery, and so it's all basically coming to the flexibility whenever we talk about the recovery options available. And this is a really crucial capability because we want you to be flexible. We want you to to recover the data the way you want and the place you want. So we're not coming to limit you over there. And all of the options are available here, starting from the full recovery, going to the file level recovery wizard, where you can basically see the contents of the file system, pick the files that you need to recover specifically, add them to the recovery list, and recover them back to the production or to any other system. All right. So yeah, the journey to this solution would start from AWS Marketplace, because we have several offerings available there. Veeam Backup for AWS, you can see the free edition on top, the trial or bring your own license edition in the middle, and the pay edition at the bottom. And the difference would be that the free edition is limited to 10 EC2 instances or 10 RDS databases. Although in terms of the full capabilities available within the product, there is no difference between all of those. So the paid edition is unlimited to anything, and bring your own license edition would be handy for someone who already have Veeam Universal License, which is the case with Veeam customers. So if you're an existing Veeam customer, there is a chance that you already have that. All right. So what do we have next? The simple configuration, or the simple example of user interface of the product. Actually, in a couple of seconds, Eric will take it away and show it what it is. But generally speaking, it's a nice modern user interface, which would kind of collect all the information from the AWS infrastructure you would give it access to, and collect all the data and sort them out by using different tabs. For example, the tab for EC2, tab for RDS and VPCs and EFS and stuff like that. So it's really easy to use, especially comparing to some other products on the market. I'm biased here, but yeah, I've tried several of them. So yeah, probably it's a good time to hand it over to Eric now and show the product in live. So Eric, take it away.
Hey, thanks, AZ. Yeah, these are some good points to get us familiar with Veeam Backup for AWS and Veeam's cloud solutions in general. So let's switch my windows here to my browser, where you have the AWS Management Console. So if you have things in AWS and you want to protect it with Veeam, the first place, like AZ said, you would go would be the AWS Marketplace. So if I go in the Marketplace, we obviously have this already set up, but if you were just getting started with it, we go to Discover Products, we'd search for Veeam, and we would see those 3 different editions that AZ mentioned. So just to kind of reiterate on a couple of those points, just so that we make sure we hear that, is your free edition is a fully featured product. There are no technical or feature limitations in that edition. The only difference is that it being free, it can only protect up to 10 instances, and there's email only support for that. But it's a great way to try it out and just get familiar with it. Then of course there's the BYOL edition. That's where you can use your own Veeam licenses and bring those to this product. You can integrate Veeam Backup for AWS with Veeam Backup and Replication. I'll touch on that briefly at the very end, just so we get some picture of what that looks like. And then if you were let's say you wanted to just use Veeam Backup for AWS by itself, and you only wanted to get your Veeam licenses on your AWS monthly bill, you can use the paid edition for that, and also help you consume some AWS credits you may have. Okay, so in terms of just getting started, we'd select the edition we want to pick, and we'd say subscribe. We got some good detail here, FYI. There's product videos, there's some links to different places where we can get some information. But if we just wanted to get up and running with it, get it deployed, we continue to subscribe. We would go through the subscription process, and then we could configure. So if we go through the Marketplace, we deploy the product using CloudFormation, and we can deploy into an existing VPC or into a new VPC. Now that brings up one important point about Veeam's cloud native products, which is that they are all agentless. There is no agent software involved with this. It is all based on integrating and interacting with the platform via its APIs. So we can put this into a separate VPC. We can put this into a separate AWS account entirely from where our production workloads are running. And that just gives you more security and more control over who has access to that environment that holds your backups and your backup solution. Okay, so a couple other quick points on just the configuration bit. We're going to go to the launch here. So this will pop us out into another tab where we're going to have our CloudFormation template ready. We give the template a name. And kind of the first step of doing the configuration is just picking the instance type. So we generally recommend to start with a T3 medium instance because it's a very scalable solution, and I'll touch more on how we do that, but we don't need a giant backup server, okay? This backup appliance or backup server is just going to be managing policies and managing different API calls to your AWS account. Okay, so once you go through the deployment process, you would have this EC2 instance that runs in your AWS account, and that just brings us to the final point while we're in the AWS console. Here's my appliance right here, which is that this is a customer deployed solution. We don't host the backup solution. We don't host your data. So you're not paying us for capacity. You're not having to worry about something that's going on in our data center because you are managing and hosting this solution in an account that you own and manage. So really you have full control over it. Now, so you'll see I've got this appliance here. I've got this public IP on it so we can demo this stuff. And I've got a new tab out here where I have a nice, pretty DNS name that's sitting in front of that IP. So this is the Veeam Backup for AWS console. Now, if you're familiar with Veeam at all, this may be new to you. A lot of people think of Veeam and they think of that Veeam Backup and Replication console, that Windows application. So this is a backup appliance and it's a fully web-based application. Now, when you first get up and running with it, there's some configuration steps, kind of a 1, 2, 3 go type situation. So the first thing you would do is set up your IAM roles. So this is especially important if you have multiple AWS accounts. If you've got a lot of different AWS accounts that you're protecting, this is where you would add those roles from those accounts to your Veeam console so that we can access those accounts and the resources in them so we can protect them. Process is really simple. Give it a friendly name here. Let's call this prod demo account. All right. And then on role settings, this is where we actually specify the role name or an option to let Veeam create the role. So we either say this is a role in the current account that I want to register with this console for Veeam to use. It's a role from another account that I want Veeam to be able to call on and use. I specify the account ID, role name, external ID here. Or like I said, you can even have Veeam create that role in that account for you so that we'll have a role that we can use to do our operations. And all of this, like the link here says, is spelled out in the user guide. So you can really dive in to what specific permissions we need and all that good stuff. All right, so once you've got your roles in place under the first step, the second step is just talking about workers for a second. So I mentioned before that we have a solution for how to scale this without having a giant backup server. And our solution is that we use these little temporary worker instances. So whenever a backup policy runs in AWS, the first thing we're going to do is take a snapshot of that instance. Whether that's EC2 or RDS or even an EFS volume, the first step is really kind of taking a snapshot of that and then managing the number of snapshots you want to keep on the policy, which I'll show you here in just a couple seconds. For the Veeam backups, however, like AZ was talking about, where we can put those Veeam image level backups in S3. and save you guys some money on just storage costs for those backups. A lot of customers come to us and say, the cost of all these snapshots is just getting really prohibitive. We've got to keep these backups for many years, and it gets tricky to manage all those snapshots. So you do all the retention management from the policy settings, and we put our Veeam backups in S3, and we can tier those backups into Glacier and to Glacier Deep Archive as well. So we have a lot of control over saving you some costs. Now, in order to do that, we're going to spin up one of these worker instances when we need to do that Veeam backup in those regions where we're protecting data. And this worker configuration just specifies where is that worker going to go, like what VPC is it going to be attached to, subnet, and security group, as you see here. Last step of configuration is setting up your actual repositories, which are just S3 buckets that you register with Veeam as a place where Veeam is going to put backup data. That's Veeam's terminology as a backup repository. So like I said, we support S3 Standard, Glacier, and Glacier Deep Archive. Those are the 3 tiers that we have full support for. Process is really simple. Yet again, we give this a name here. We'd say, okay, what role am I using to access that bucket? What bucket do I want to use? Let's just pick this one. Do I want to use an existing folder? Do I want to create a new folder? And then what storage class do I want this repository to be? And next step, this is another little good point here, is your encryption options. So if I've got some data that I want to put in that repository, but I want all that data to be encrypted, then I can enable encryption, and we can use either Veeam's password-based encryption, or we can use KMS. If you've got some keys in KMS that you want to leverage, then we can encrypt the data with that KMS customer managed key as well. Okay, so that's kind of the setup process. I kind of walked through the architecture and the process really quickly. We only have 30 minutes together, so we're trying to keep this at a high level, but really from deployment and subscription to configuration, you can be up and running in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's pretty quick. So, once you've kind of completed those steps, now you're ready to start setting up policies. So if I click that, we're going to hit back out to the policies view, and we've got these 4 different services that we support. So we can protect EC2 instances, RDS instances, EFS volumes, and even your VPC settings. So this helps you especially protect your operating environment. So if you need to recover not just the workloads, but also the network configuration somewhere else in a different account, a different region, we can help facilitate that. So let's open up a policy real quick, just talk about some options here, in particular the scheduling options. We've got sources, where am I backing up the data from? That includes the IAM role we're going to use to access that account, the regions where we have workloads that we want to protect. We can add one or multiple to the list and say, okay, I want to back up workloads all over the US. Great. Now, what workloads in those 4 different regions am I going to protect with this policy? This is an EC2 policy, so we're looking for EC2 instances. We can say I want to back up everything. That's kind of a catch-all, all the EC2 instances in all those regions. If I was protecting only the following resources, I can choose instance by instance, or we generally recommend to use tags, because when you do that, every time we run the policy, it's going to scan those regions in that account for any instances with that tag. And once it locates or it finds those instances, it's going to start protecting them according to this policy settings. So I've got a tag here, Veeam Backup. It doesn't have to be named that. It can be any tag that you're using in your environment, just whatever fits your needs. Okay, so I've got my region selected, my resources selected. Now, application processing options or guest processing options. So like AZ mentioned, this is really important for like database workloads, so we get a transactionally consistent backup. So we can do that with Windows instances just with the flip of a switch by enabling application-aware snapshots. We leverage the Systems Manager service in AWS to do that. So you can use Systems Manager for a lot of things to manage your EC2 workloads. and we can basically call on that to say, hey, take this snapshot for me in an application consistent way. Then guest scripting options. This is particularly useful for Linux. So we can do, a script that we're going to call on in the guest OS before a snapshot and after a snapshot. So we can say, let's stop this process or pause this process, and then let's restart or resume that process after the snapshot's completed. And that way your snapshot and your backup is in an application consistent state. Then here we have targets. So this is where is this backup data going to go? So we can replicate snapshots or copy snapshots to other regions or other accounts. We would just set up our region mapping here, either per region, or we can do it for all the regions really quickly. And then, of course, we've mentioned before the Veeam backups. So if we enable that toggle there, we're going to start creating those Veeam backups and putting them in the repository in S3. If we check this box here, we're going to start putting those archive backups in Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, whichever storage class you selected when you created that repository. Then your scheduling options. So for starting typically with your dailies, we're going to edit these daily settings. And just with this graphical interface, I can click and choose at what times of the day do I want different types of backup data created. So now I'm creating a snapshot, 6 snapshots per day, and I'm creating one backup at 5 p.m. Maybe I want another backup at 5 a.m. Great, super easy to set up. If you have a highly transactional workload, we can also do a lot of snapshots per hour. If you want to be able to recover from like 15 minutes ago, this could be useful for you. Something like this will give you a lot of granularity in terms of restore points. Now, if I keep this simple, we can keep a certain quantity of snapshots and our backups for a duration of time. So we can choose 14 days here, 14 months, really, again, very flexible, whatever floats your boat. We can also enable this monthly schedule. So one interesting thing that we'll do with this monthly schedule is we're not going to create separate backup data. We're going to reuse as much of the backup data that we created during that daily schedule as possible. So that's why we've got this restore point here that we're saying, let's use the backup data that was created at midnight on the first Monday of the month, and let's keep those restore points for this number of snapshots and this number of, or this duration of time of backups. Flip of a toggle here, that puts the backups into archive for those monthlies and yearlies. So that would put that into that Glacier Deep Archive, really low cost, about $1 a terabyte per month. Okay, so that's pretty much what a policy looks like. There's also a nifty cost estimation tool here. Part of what we're responsible for when we're dealing with public cloud is managing our costs, right? So, if you're setting up a policy and you don't have any idea how much that policy will cost, you could get a bad surprise at the end of the month. So this estimation tool says, based on the size of the volumes that are attached to those instances, here's what your storage costs and your API costs in AWS could cost based on a few assumptions. So we're just trying to give you some idea and some control over your costs. All right, so that pretty much finishes out a policy. And I want to touch on recovery options and just the integration with VBR. So all of the different policies that you set up here work exactly the same way as what you just saw with EC2, RDS, EFS. It's a wizard-based process. You just set how many of the restore points you want to keep, and you do all the management from the policy wizard. For VPC settings, this is disabled out of the box, but you can enable this. And for every region and account where we're protecting an instance of any type, we can collect those VPC settings. And this gives you some interesting recovery options. So if I go to protected data here, and let's just take a peek at VPC real quick. I could say, okay, has anything changed in my VPCs since that policy last ran? Okay, this security group changed. Do I, have any differences between the production VPC and the state of the VPC in the backup? Yes, it looks like this particular security group was modified, and I have some rules that changed between that backup restore point that we're looking at and what's in production right this very moment. So I can recover individual items, like if I want to get that security group setting back, I can recover just that security group, or I can recover the entire VPC to another region, another account. And again, that's about giving you some DR options to recover the whole environment. For EC2, RDS, EFS, we can do a full instance recovery. So we can restore that whole instance from a given point in time to the same place, like overwriting the existing instance, or to a new location, like a different account, a different region, different availability zone, a different size instance, you name it. Other option I'll point out here for EC2 and for EFS is we can do file level recoveries. Really simple process, like AZ mentioned, where we can either download the files to our local system using an interface that just gives us a view of the file system from that point in time, or with EC2, we can even recover that data directly back into the instance that it came from. So we can basically inject the file back into the original file system. All right. So last thing I want to touch on is just, how does this integrate with Veeam as people have known it, Veeam Backup and Replication. So if I go now to my other window, I've got Veeam Backup and Replication pulled up here, and you can see all of those AWS policies that we were just looking at are in my VBR console. I also have my policies from Azure and from GCP in there. So I can manage all of those different backup policies side by side with my on-premises backup jobs. If I had some in this demo environment, you would see them here. I don't, but it all integrates with the same console. So we have these plugins that are built into VBR now, version 11, where I can connect VBR to the AWS appliance, to those other appliances and the other clouds. And basically, that puts VBR in touch with that appliance so it can manage the Veeam licensing for it, and so it can have some insight into what that appliance is doing. From a job standpoint, I can see the different statuses here. And then once I actually have VBR connected, I can do a backup copy job from one platform to another. If I wanted to move my backup data to a different place, I can also use the Veeam backup data to restore whole VMs from those clouds to my on-premises environment or to a different cloud, because when Veeam creates the backup data, it's in Veeam format, and after that it's portable, so we can use it outside of the platform that it was created in. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of options here for what you can do in terms of managing and controlling your data and your workloads. Okay, so that kind of completes the demo. I know there's a lot coming at you, but we want to give you a couple ways to reach out to us in case you want to get something more personalized, or in case you just have questions that we just don't have time for in a session like this. So I'm going to hand it back to AZ, and we'll close it out. AZ.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric. That was a nice demo indeed. Yeah, so yeah, I think there is no ongoing question because there were a couple of them, but then I answered all of them. So anyways, I think we could wrap it up and basically provide you with the information about the way how you can contact us. So whenever you have any questions, there is a public email address, which is public.cloud@veeam.com. And basically there is a dedicated team of people, including Eric, and they follow that email address, and they would be happy, to have a conversation. And whenever you guys have any questions or any considerations or basically anything, just feel free to email, them to this public email address. So yeah, we'll be in touch. And yeah, I guess with that, probably there is the last slide to mention that Veeam has an exclusive offer with the for free cloud backup. So you can scan this QR code right away, or you can go to this particular link, which is veeam.im/free-AWS, and visit it. We have a nice landing page talking more about this exclusive offer, and then you will know what it is. So it's more about getting some of the Azure or AWS credits for free, and then using our products in conjunction to that. So with that, wrap it up. thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for staying active and staying with us till the end of the session. I hope that you have learned something interesting today. And yeah, if anything, just go to veeam.com, because we have plenty of different pages and resource library and everything over there. So thank you so much and have a good day and stay healthy. Bye.